Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paul Sears, and I am a solution specialist with AWS based in the Philippines. I'll be joined in a little bit with my colleague named Brian Chua, who's a solutions architect, and he's based here in Singapore. I want to thank you for taking a few moments today to join us for this session on building mobile applications. We're actually going to share with you something that a new way of building applications we think you're really going to find interesting and really going to excite you a little bit. So when we're looking at building our mobile applications, we have many things we have to consider with the application. We have our business logic and our backend and all of our different components and aspects of making our application designed for our users and what they expect. So you have a lot of things to consider, particularly when it comes around the application requirements themselves. And these days, you need to give a lot of thought to things like data security, particularly on how you manage user identities, especially at scale, and you want to make sure you do it in a secure manner. You're going to focus on how to make your UX performant and responsive, so you want to actually make a good user experience. And to take the user experience even further, you're going to maybe personalize the application for your users and give them the optimal experience they can get. And while you do that, you now have all this application data. So you need to worry about things like how do you make that data available to users when they are not on the internet. Let's say they're offline, they are traveling in a train, or maybe they're on a plane somewhere, or they've gone to a country, they don't have data or reliable Wi-Fi. We talk to many customers, and customers expect our applications to do a lot of things. And these are just some examples of things that our customers want us to do in the application, such as I mentioned, managing user identities at scale. It's very hard to do, especially do it in a secure and proper manner. Also, things like syncing the data across the different platforms and client devices, as well as the back end. And that's hard to do, especially when doing at scale again. And we also want to make sure we have the data for data of application use, the metrics, stuff we can do analytics to make a better experience and learning how our users are actually using the application, what they're actually doing with it. And as a developer, we actually have additional considerations as well. So fragmentation across platforms is a difficult challenge right now. And again, as I mentioned, syncing the data, scaling the data, syncing data at scale across platforms is very hard to do properly, especially when you need to do it securely. And the user problem is a big problem. User credentials, identity management is a big challenge for applications. And again, scale is a big part of that. And this takes you away from focusing on things like making your application better and the experience you want to build for your users. And then we want to get into our applications into AWS, into the cloud. So how do we leverage services? What do we need to build ourselves to make these services available that we can utilize in our applications as features for our users? So what if there's another way of doing this, an easier way of managing your resources in the cloud for your applications that you need to deliver the features and functionality your users want? So before I get too far into that, I want to kind of explain what we're doing. And we're going to be building an application during this session. And we're going to be, we're here at a large event, AWS Summit, so we're going to be building a mobile event application to demonstrate how we can use this new easy way of leveraging and managing services in AWS. This application is going to have functionality and services like authentication, secure authentication that will scale to millions of users. We'll also have the ability to do things like create events or list the events that are available or let you join an event that interests you. And also the ability to chat with other mobile users in that application. And then, of course, we're going to collect analytics in the back end to kind of show you how users are using the application and how you can actually enhance that experience even more. So we're talking about our architecture, and we need to figure out what we're going to do. We want to leverage these services in AWS in the cloud. So, so normally we may have to go and build things ourselves. So maybe we'll talk to a backend engineer to provision an app stack, a bunch of services and APIs for us to leverage our application to deliver the functionality and services we need. Or maybe we're going to go in AWS ourselves in the console and manually provision things to do some of the things we want to do to accomplish our task, to deliver those functionality and features. Or maybe you're going to do both. So that's a lot of work to manage all this yourself, to integrate with these services that are available to make your users have a better experience. So we're introducing AWS Amplify to do a lot of this for you. Amplify consists of 3 components: frameworks, cloud services, and developer tools, and with a command line to help you manage all this. And it's a better way of actually to integrate and manage the resources in AWS. So it supports many popular OSs and frameworks. It also provides integration and ability to manage different AWS services such as AWS Lambda, Amazon API Gateway, and so on. And it gives you tools to help you build and test and deploy. And also, if you actually want to host your entire web application, the front end or back end, you can do that as well through Amplify. So now, as you can see, our architecture is evolving. Are going to use AWS Amplify as a mechanism to manage the resources in AWS that we're going to use in our application to deliver all the components we listed in our application. So as we went back to our first model here, the first module is authentication, and that's a very difficult challenge to do, especially at scale. At large scale, to do with security is a very hard problem. So Amplify allows us to do a module for authentication, and what it does the heavy lifting for us by integrating with Amazon Cognito to do identity management at scale for all your users on all your applications. And Amazon Cognito is a serverless and actually a managed service for you, meaning there's no infrastructure, there's nothing you need to deploy to run to deliver identities and manage identities for millions and millions of users across your applications. In addition, you can also federate into other third-party authenticators like Google or Facebook or even Amazon as well. So we lay out our architecture. As you can see here, we're going to provision Cognito by using Amplify to create the authentication in Cognito for us. It actually streamlines and makes things very easy for us. And then we're going to actually leverage those endpoint from Cognito in our application with the SDK and AWS tools to make those services available. So it's now time for me to bring up Brian, my colleague, who's going to go ahead and walk you through the development of the remaining pieces of the application with AWS Amplify. And we're going to see how simple it is to build everything, integrate into your application. Brian?
Thank you, Paul. So, hi everyone. My name is Brian. I'm an AWS Solution Architect in Singapore. So I'm going to show you step by step on how do I actually get started with Amplify on a brand clean state of a React Native application. So the very first step is actually for me to create a new React Native application. And for me to actually get started with Amplify, there are 2 important NPM packages that you guys need to take note, which is AWS Amplify and also AWS Amplify React Native. The second one is a framework that we will use it for our UI component later on. So later on, I will going to provision get the Amplify CLI as well. So this is the part where we will actually provision the cloud resources from the terminal that you have installed in. So to get started, it's very simple. Let's start with Amplify init. So with this Amplify init, it actually behind the scene provisions the CloudFormation templates, and all these kind of things are actually managed for you automatically. You also get to choose different kind of build process and then the command and stuff like that. With the different environment, there's also you are in, you can actually choose different AWS credential so that you can deploy this project in the development stage or in the staging environment. So once you are done, so let's take a look at the CloudFormation or in our AWS console. Similar here, you get to see the different outputs and also you get to see the resources that has been provisioned. So now let's take a look at how do we actually integrate the Amplify with Cognito, right? So I'm not sure about the commands, just simply enter Amplify. So this is the list of commands you can run. Now I know already, so let's get started with the authentication. Just simply add Amplify, add authentication, off. So I can choose the long route, which is to customize the whole configuration that I want from the authentication, from things like the strength of the password to how long do I have to refresh the access token. So these are some of the things that is available in the wizard, and all these is actually part of the configuration that you can configure in the Amazon Cognito. So once you are done, we can check by using Amplify status. If you are comfortable with it, then let's push it out to the AWS cloud. So with this, it's going to take a while, provision the AWS Amazon Cognito for you. You can also go to the CloudFormation to actually take a look at actually what's happening behind the scene. So we use the best practice here, or we use the CloudFormation nested stack to actually provision each kind of resources that's been run on the Amplify. So let's go back to the console. Here's more straightforward. You get to see whether it's done or not done. So once done, let's see whether does it actually configure right. So we just see Amplify status. So once done, let's move on to the code. So for the React Native application, firstly, let's quickly add in the two npm modules that previously we have added. So from here, I'm going to quickly add the AWS Amplify and also the Amplify React Native. So with the UI available from the framework, I'm going to quickly add the authentication screens, sign-up screens, and the forget password screens here. So let me refactor the code a little bit from here. So what's going to happen is that the authentication screens will appear on top of your applications. And at the same time, because I'm using Amplify CLI, all the configuration that the Amplify needs in the framework is actually auto-managed for us. So that's pretty neat. So I'm going to import the configuration in and simply do a amplify.configure. So from here, more or less, we are done. So let's quickly take a look at how it looks like with the Amplify React Native. So this is the screen that you are given by default. You can customize a little bit here and there, or you get to customize between the colors and adding of the logos. So let's quickly add a users to actually see what's behind the screens. Out of the box, it comes with the MFA. You will send the code, confirmation code to your email. And then let's quickly log in the screen. And then we are done. So this is the clean React Native application that we always see when doing the application. So now we are done integrating the authentication piece. So let's focus our effort into the main meat of the development, where you are here to actually build the event application, right? So, and then before we actually think about what are the cloud resources to provision, let's take a step back and think about what are we going to do with the data schema. So as you may know, this is the version 1 of the application. So you can have a very simple table, 3 tables, but who knows? Let's say you have version 2 with more features, more data is going to come in, you're going to change your columns, adding more data. We're not going to mess up with the database migration here. So for us, we are going to use the Amazon DynamoDB. It's actually the best way to store your data. It's completely serverless and managed for you. You are scaling for production in day 1. So let's quickly add that to our architecture diagram. And also, now let's think a bit on how do we actually interact with your data source. So I need to quickly get the data out, and also I also want to have the ability to query what I need from the database. I can go back to the traditional way, which is to design each of these endpoints myself, and then to actually make things a little bit more complex. So let's say you have a web applications, desktop application, where you actually have this endpoint already. most of the time when you're doing the mobile applications, you have some endpoints that is being reused, but not all the data is required, right? So it still doesn't need, still doesn't fulfill what I need. I can't create what I need. Into today's sessions, let's going to use GraphQL. So GraphQL is a new way to query what you need. It's open source, and also it provides you that one endpoint for you to do your GraphQL operations, queries, mutation, and subscription. It simplifies your workflow. The developer now have to just integrate with just one endpoint. And since it provides you with the capability to do a nested queries, meaning you do not have to go round trips. One queries can get you with a lot of data that you need for that screen. And last but not least, because we are using GraphQL, it comes with subscription, which is an operation comes that it listens to the changes from the server in real time. And then you actually subscribe to the different data source that you want, and then you get the changes. Okay, then now comes back to the most important point again. I do not want to set up my own EC2, my own GraphQL server. How do I get the benefit of the serverless and also highly available and fault tolerance from here? So with this, luckily for us, we have the AWS AppSync. It also is highly managed, it's serverless, it fulfills what we need. So let's quickly add that in into here. And then in the next demo, let's quickly jump back to our next demo. All right. So because I already coded the UI, I already know what I want. Let's quickly add all the npm modules that we need from here. So first step is to actually add your GraphQL API, right? So if you notice from here, you do not need to say I want the AppSync, because behind the scene, actually we will manage this for you. You as a developer, you just focus on what is the functionality that you want. So let's say I just want a GraphQL endpoint. Just state here. Let's edit the schema from here. So the GraphQL schema is also simplified here. We are using the annotation to actually define how the schema is going to look like for the GraphQL. From here, you notice that we have different connection to different tables. This is going to help us to do our nested queries. And also, we define each of the data source as a model. So then it's easy for us to define this as different kind of data tables that we want. I already know what I want. I'm going to paste it in. If you notice here, in the events table, we have a new annotation which is called the searchable annotation. Later on, we will go through what are the magic happening behind the scene. So when I'm done, I'm going to simply do an amplify push again. This time around, it's going to take a little while. It's because behind the scene is doing all the different integration for you, and you just have to for us to actually appreciate this. Let's take a look at the AWS console. You also get the option to do the code generation here after your GraphQL have been pushed. So from here, you notice that it's a lot of nested CloudFormation stack, but not to worry. Let's jump in straight to AppSync, because I know that we provision our GraphQL API endpoints, right? So from here, this is the schema that comes with the GraphQL server. So let's also take a look at the data source. I know that I provision 4 data tables, and one of it I want to show you guys is the events table. So from here, you can just click, it'll bring you straight to the DynamoDB table. And then from here, you notice that DynamoDB provides you a way to actually trigger. It's actually a trigger to actually push a Lambda or push your changelog to the Lambda. So behind the scene, what Amplify did for us is actually streaming the data changes from DynamoDB to another service which is called the Elasticsearch service. And from here, we actually can query anything we want from this Elasticsearch service. And all of these are done and managed for you using the Amplify CLI. So once done, you notice that it says generated GraphQL operations are also done. So let's quickly take a look at what are some of the things provided by the code gen. So go to source. It comes with this folder called GraphQL. So if you are not sure of what to use or how do I do a query, you can refer to this file and these folders. But I already have my own UI, so I'm going to paste in my code, and also going to paste in my UI that's going to come in with all the different event screen, join screen, and stuff like that. So let me quickly do that. So in here, I'm going to show you guys 3 examples of how does each of these operation looks like. So let's zoom into one. So first is a home screen to query the events from the Elasticsearch server. So with here, I can do a sorting. I sort by how it's going to look like. I will sort by the start at. I also filter away the expired events and it's not going to show up here. And then in the items list, this is how I want the attributes to be returned back to me. In the mutation, it's a lot more simpler. You just simply pass in the inputs or your values into these fields. And then for me to confirm whether is it been done inserted to the data table, I want it to return the ID instead. So next, I'm going to do subscription, which will be happening at the chat room. For me, I just want to be subscribed on every new message that comes to this channel. And same thing, it will just return me all the different information available for that chat. So let's test this out and see whether it works. Okay, so now we still see the screen, the authentication screen. Let's quickly log it in. And then you notice the home, there's nothing, it's okay. So let's go to the first one, which is mutation. We quickly create the first application, first event to see whether it works. So do a refresh. Okay, then now I fast forward. I will, okay, to join the screen and to leave also. Now let's fast forward. I'm going to quickly create the rest of the events. Let's take a look at the chat. And then from here, I'm going to use my phone. So the first one, the one that's bigger screen is my phone. I'm going to use I'm going to type out and then send myself some messages. And you notice that the payload actually comes to you on the console. I actually do a console log, and then I can do the updates on the screen as and when I get the changes from the subscription. So from here, actually, building of these screens are actually pretty much straightforward now. Let's focus on the last one, which is analytics. And actually, you might be thinking, okay, after we build the analytics, we might be done, right? But actually, we are not quite done yet. With analytics, you still have to think about how is my app being used, how do I continuously improve my application based on the data point. And some of the things is like, if you have the data information available to you already, how do I reach out to the user? How do I target a specific group of user which needs to be re-engaged? So it turns out that we have a service called Amazon Pinpoint that allows you to do both. One is analytics and also allow you to design campaigns specifically to certain events. And let's update this. So this is the architecture here. So before we actually jump into the next demo, so at this screen, you might be thinking, okay, let's also design the custom event that we want to track, right? So I'm quickly edit this and add these few events in. Okay, so then now brings to the next question, right? So how do I reach out to the user? What are some of the trigger points that you can think about is when the user first create an event? So probably when the user first create an event, you want to send email to the person, say there is a confirmation, you can share this to your friends. Or how do you reach out to the user again when the user have not actually logged into your app? So with this, I'm going to dive in straight to the demo. Okay. So this is the Amazon Pinpoint, the console that you'll be seeing. With it, it comes with different dashboard available. And let's say if I want to find out what are the different platforms and stuff like that, it comes by default. And because we have already added the custom events in, you can see that it actually tracks, and then you can see how many people actually have clicked that button, how many people actually create the events. And let's say you are sending out the emails, it also tracks your open rate, click rate, and stuff like that. There are different messaging channels here that we have to configure. So I have go ahead and I went ahead to actually configure this. So push notification, it can be managed here as well. Simply just upload for iOS is p12, and then your password for Android will be the API keys. So all these can be managed centrally here. For some of the users, for some of the developers, probably you want to actually get this analytics event. You can stream this event off to Kinesis. We can do all the AI ML later with that part later on. For me to test whether it works, I can go to this section which is called testing my messaging. Firstly, let's test whether the push notification works, right? And because I already know my device token, I'm going to quickly paste in. So this is how actually you're going to test your applications once you are done. So I'm going to pop up my phone again because iOS only works with your physical phone to see whether the push notification works. Okay, so now the toughest part is over, right? So let's go to design our campaign. Today I'm going to show you 3 campaigns that you can possibly think of, and then after that, it's really up to you. So first one will be thinking about how do I send out to the user when a particular event has been triggered. Let's say when a user first created an event, and I want this to be sent out to all users. So I create a segment to say all users. So next one, in the email section, email channel messaging, I'm going to craft my message here, and then I'm going to scroll down, send. Okay, so from here, there's 2 options. You can specify a timing. So for us, we want it to be based on event trigger. So I already go ahead and create an event called created event. This confirms the event has been created. Okay, once it's done, I review. If I'm satisfied with this, I can simply launch this campaign. So this is evergreen. You can let this campaign go on and on forever. So now, maybe your team comes to you, right, and say, hey, there's a promotional campaign that I want to send out to my user. How do I reach out to all my users right now? Okay, let's quickly send out the push notification to all users from here. So same thing, come to here, and then select the segment for all users. But for this, I want to send out to push notification. And then I'm going to speed up the process to do this. Okay, so now let's say if I want you to schedule it later, also can, but I want to send it immediately. Review and launch again. So the last campaign, which is a little bit tricky, will be things like, okay, I want to send a push notification to a particular segment of user who have not used my application for the last 7 days. You might be thinking, how should I do that, right? But in here, Pinpoint actually allows you to create your own segment. So you can say that, okay, I only want to reach out to my user via push notification. What are the different event, or which is I will want to target those people who are inactive for the last 7 days. So these are some of the built-in features that's available in Pinpoint. So once done, let's quickly set the third campaign up. Choose the particular segment. I'm going to quickly speed up this through again. So from here, it's a little bit unique. So you can say, okay, I want to run this event every day, and this event will trigger every day. I also don't want to mess up the time zone. I can specify the user's phone as a time zone. And then once I'm done, I can quickly click launch. I also get the preview to see when this event is going to get triggered. So that's at the top as the middle section here. So all these events, all these campaigns are actually tracked. So within the Pinpoint console, you get to see all the different campaign metrics and stuff like that. Okay, so we have done a lot here. So I think now I'll get Paul back on stage to actually share and summarize what we have learned so far in the past 30 minutes. Paul?
Thank you, Brian. So as you can see, we've actually built a pretty interesting application, a little event management application that leveraged a number of AWS services such as AppSync and Cognito and Pinpoint, DynamoDB. One of the key takeaways is that we use Amplify to do the heavy lifting for you. We didn't need to actually do anything special and set up and define endpoints in Cognito. Amplify did it for us by walking through the little wizards and giving information. And it handled all that, including deploying appropriate cloud formation stacks to manage the infrastructure behind the scenes for you. So you didn't need to spend all your time worrying about building those stacks and managing resources. We just did it through Amplify and managed it through Amplify CLI. So just to recap what we did, Brian walked us through a really good demo of how we built an application piece by piece, integrating into various services, AWS, and again, using Amplify as doing all the heavy lifting that you may in the past had to do yourself. Now you could, that's really one of the really strong advantages of Amplify. It does that work for you. You can leverage the massive scale of our services, managed services, and they're serverless. There's no infrastructure for you to deploy in the back end to do things like managing user identities and managing databases and stuff. It's all done for you by our managed services, and it has extreme scale. But if you not really understand what Amplify brings to the table, then maybe you can think to yourself, I could do it myself. Well, you can actually do it. In the past, you may have been doing it by yourself by building interfaces and custom libraries and maintaining those for all the services. But over time, it becomes difficult to manage, to maintain all those different connections and interfaces and libraries across different platforms. And as we add new services and capabilities and change the services, you go back and modify those integration points. Amplify handles all that for you, and it manages the infrastructure behind the scenes for you to deliver your application quickly. So to do this application, we actually have the code available for you. You can look up here a URL, go ahead and copy it down, take a picture if you like. You can walk through this workshop and build this application yourself using AWS Amplify, integrating in these various services. So I really suggest you take an opportunity to give it a shot and see how it works for you. Okay, I'm going to go on and move on. If you want, find me afterwards. We can give you the URL again. So you can get started with AWS Amplify very easily by going to the Amplify repository on GitHub, or you can search for AWS Amplify online. And you can see how Amplify can really simplify managing infrastructure and backend for you that you'd do yourself. Leverage serverless applications, manage services from AWS, manage the extreme scalability we offer, and then let you focus on what you need to really worry about with your application, what your users want, and adding new features and functionality to give a better user experience. Don't worry about the infrastructure details. We do it for you using things like Amplify and our managed services. So I do want to thank you for spending some time with us, and hopefully you were able to go through the demos, follow along with us, and see how Amplify really allowed us to build an application that has quite a bit of functionality, and it's very scalable and very secure. So thank you for spending time with us.